Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix. I'm Amy McKlindon, your worship associate this morning. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix strives to be a spiritual community for our time, focused on diverse theological perspectives, radical inclusion, and knowing that issues of justice and equity shape everything we do. With a special awareness for those who have been historically marginalized, we welcome all, of every race, class, ethnicity, immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious background, mental and physical ability and disability. We welcome you as your whole self, and we welcome your family into our worship as we build a community of kindness and caring, courage, and hope. This morning, I have the pleasure of welcoming our guest minister, Rev.Yadenee Hailu, to the online pulpit. Yadenee is an ordained Unitarian Universalist minister currently living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Her practice and ministry are to cultivate spiritual wellness and healing as a lifestyle. She is ecstatic with the opportunities to remember our power and orient our energy to center life and serve the ultimate. Additionally, Yadenee is a first-generation Ethiopian American and believes the experience of being raised between cultures, Black in the United States, and a woman greatly impact her embodied and philosophical understanding of liberation. She also holds accountable the privileges she has, such as degree of body ability, master's level education, and cisgendered, in her practice of taking responsibility, supporting healing, and actively recentering relationships, institutions, lifestyles. You'll hear more from her later in the service, and we are so grateful to have Reverend Yadenee here with us this morning. Our opening words are from Anita Morjani. In the tapestry of life, we are all connected. Each one of us is a gift to those around us, helping each other be who we are, weaving a perfect picture together. I invite you to grab a chalice or a candle from your home as we recite our covenant and light our chalice together. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to share our strength in fellowship, thus do we covenant. Now let me introduce our worship team. We have our Director of Children's Ministries, Katie Resendez. Our Music Director, Benji Messer. And you heard earlier on our pianist, Mary Cota. Behind the scenes, we have our AV team, Justin Walgren, John Reed Maffeo, and Brad Chapman is our moderator today. Rev.Yadenee Hailu is joining us via video. For our online worship this morning, we encourage you to find the chat symbol on your screen and to engage with information and links from our moderator. As always, we invite you to check in on social media with the hashtag UUAnywhere. And now for a few announcements about the life of our community. We continue to have tons of weekly programming for kids and adults. All of the program links and passwords are in our weekly e-newsletter. You can sign up for Compass on our website. And please also see Compass for additional ways to connect and co-create the world we want to live in, including information on our August food and supply drive for the Navajo Nation, opportunities from our civic engagement team and UU Jazz, and more. And we are so excited this week to be welcoming back our minister, Reverend Christine Dance, from her study leave. All of us collectively contribute to supporting the mission and the vision of this congregation as we explore what it means to be a religious community for our time. We invite you to give to our offering at any time during the service. You can donate by the text information in the chat, on our website, or send in a check. We are so grateful for your generosity.
Hi, everyone. Rev.Yadenee Hailu will be speaking to us about the wonder around all of us. And in just a few days, on August 4th, it's Louis Armstrong's birthday, so I wanted to start with a Song of Wonder that was his biggest hit. What a Wonderful World. Feel free to sing along with me. The lyrics will be in the chat. There they are. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day and the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Katie, back to you.
Good morning, Benji. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Katie Resendez, and I'm the Director of Children's Ministry here at UUC Phoenix. You and I and our UUCP community and everyone we know have been on a journey together. We've gone off on a quest, and we're searching for a dragon egg, or a magic wand, or a spell book, or maybe the perfect bread recipe. But we've been journeying together for days and days and days. We've been riding our horses. We had packed everything we needed. We prepared for everything we could think of. And now it's just days of travel. And it's seeing how the trees change, how the weather feels when it gets too hot, or if we go somewhere where it rains. We've been journeying together. And we've seen mountains, and we've seen rivers, and we've seen lots and lots of flat land and mesas. And for the past few weeks, we've been traveling over a mesa together. And it's been hard, and it doesn't feel like things change, and nobody feels like they have any choices. And we've been eating a lot of the same things. And we don't have any more stories to tell one another. You know that's not true. We always have more stories to tell each other. But as we've been walking, and as we've been riding our horses, we realize that it's going to change. The landscape is going to be totally different. We can see that the trees have dropped off in the distance and the shadows move a little different in front of us. And one day as we're riding, we come across a canyon, a great, big, huge hole in the ground. Being from Arizona, we know what these are. And we also know that our horses do whatever we tell them. And that's great sometimes, but sometimes it's a problem because we don't know how to handle this canyon. We don't know if there's switchbacks on the trail or what other animals there are, and we've never been down inside it, and we have to make it up to the other side. And I don't think our horses are going to do. because they're just going to listen to us. We're the brains of this operation. And if we tell the thing carrying us what to do and we don't know it, it might not work. So let's look around. What else did we bring? Somebody brought their pet cat. I don't think she's going to help us very much. We have a bicycle. That won't do well. A wagon. Some dogs. A few cattle animals, a goat. And a pack animal. We have a mule. We have a whole bunch of mules. So where horses are known for doing what they're told and following their rider, mules are not. Mules are phenomenally stubborn and will only do what feels safe, what feels good, and what they know will give them a place to rest. That kind of sounds like the perfect animal to go down this canyon. But it feels kind of uncomfortable and strange to trust the instinct of something that doesn't even come up to my shoulder height, and something who only ever says, "Wah!" and refuses to come when I pull it. But I think if we switch around our gear and put our packs onto our horses and our saddles onto our mules, and all of us mount up, that rocking, swaying motion of the mule when they stop and refuse to go could be something we begin to trust. And honestly, if we think about how hard our mules are with their big ears and shaggy fur, I know we're going to make it to the bottom of this canyon. And I bet you we'll make it back up too. And when we get back up, we can decide if we need to get back on our horses, stay on our mules, or if we need to walk for a bit. But we need to make sure that we're pulling from all of the things we have in our heads and our hearts and our tummies and the way our bodies feel. Because if we're not trusting those, I don't think we're going to ever find that dragon egg. And I absolutely know that we're meant to find that perfect bread recipe, the magic wand, or the dragon egg. You are all so very powerful and so very loved. Have a wonderful week.
It is the time when we share the joys and sorrows of our community. Being together, it is good to share, to support each other, and to connect. I invite you to please write any joys or sorrows that you would like to share with our community into the chat, sending it to the panelists. Please put your name at the beginning so I know who it is from. And if you want it to be private only to me and not to be shared, please put the word private at the beginning. And I won't share it out loud, but I will hold it in my heart. While you are typing those, please remember that we are connected by our neighborhood connector groups, and our lay pastoral care associates are reaching out to folks who may be struggling during this time. If you have a pastoral concern, please reach out to Reverend Christine as she returns. I'm keeping an eye on the chat for any joys and sorrows that are coming in. We have a joy from Jen, that Jen is 91 days sober and found a sponsor last night and is so grateful. Wonderful. Charlotte shares that Smoot and I will be celebrating our 47th anniversary on Tuesday. And Reggie and Sunshine wish JoJo a happy 11th birthday this week. We love you very much, they share. Katie Resendez shares a happy birthday to the Bucker Gramey family, 3 celebrations in 1 week. Eric Ariano shares a joy that it was cloudy on my bike ride this morning, which was a welcome change. Joan Gale and Will Snowden share that we had a lovely socially distant visit with our daughter Lisa and our grandchildren last weekend. Lots of joys and celebrations coming in the chat. And Katie Resendez shares that Katie is holding all our teachers and students and families facing the school year as it begins this coming week. Absolutely. McCall shares that my partner's surgery went well and they are recovering well too. Wonderful. As a community grounded in love, we hold all that has been shared today, as well as those joys and concerns that are kept close to our hearts as we move into this time of meditation and prayer. Our prayer of meditation today comes from UU Minister Lynn Cox. Creative Spirit, source of life and love, we give thanks for the beauty of this day and for the company of those assembled here. Thank you for the breezes of change, clearing our heads and bringing fresh ideas. May they cleanse our minds of the oppressions and isms that divide us. Thank you for the flame of hope, the heat of righteous anger, the warmth of compassion, and the fire of commitment. May they bubble the cauldrons of transformation. Thank you for oceans of love, rivers of connection, tears of relief, and pools of serenity. May healing waters flow over us and through us and among us, wearing down the sharp rocks of despair to bring joy in the morning. Thank you for the good earth beneath us, around us, and within us. May we take this clay and co-create a new realm of justice and beauty. Thank you for all these and more. We accept our gifts and commit to building, sculpting, painting, singing, and dancing them to life, to abundant life. So be it. Blessed be. Amen. I invite you to join me now in a moment of silence. Amen and blessed be. Rev.Yadenee's sermon title today is Sacred Fractals. And I'll be honest, I had to turn to Google to figure out what a fractal was. I learned from a scientist named Larry Bradley that a fractal is a geometric object that is similar to itself on all scales. If you zoom in on a fractal object, it will look similar or exactly like the original shape. This got me thinking about the individual and how we shape, are shaped by, and co-create the collective. Early in 2020, pre-COVID in Arizona, I went on a hike with a dear friend of mine. We call them our spiritual hikes, and we laid out our intentions and desires for the year ahead. Mine was to more clearly define my why and actively identify ways to live my life in alignment with that purpose. Little did I know how much time I would have for reflection on that this year. The spoiler alert is that I still haven't figured out my why completely, and I recognize that this personal journey is made possible by the multiple privileges I hold. What I do know is that I want to live in a world where everyone has the ability to identify and pursue their why, to live as their most beautiful, self-defined, true selves. We have so much work left to do to get there, but I believe that each of us living out our individual whys in community will create ripple effects beyond what we'll ever see, and that if you could zoom out, you would see the fractal changing. Author Cleo Wade says, quote, "We are the builders who are building a world that has never been built before. I am so grateful to be building that world in community with all of you." And now for today's reading. Our reading comes from Adrienne Marie Brown's opening speech to the Allied Media Conference in 2013. Emergence is beyond what the sum of its parts could even imagine. A group of caterpillars and nymphs might not see flight in their future, but it's inevitable, it's destiny. Oak trees don't set an intention to listen to each other better or agree to hold tight to each other when the next storm comes. Under the earth, always, they reach for each other. They grow such that their roots are intertwined and create a system of strength which is as resilient on a sunny day as it is in a hurricane. Dandelions don't know whether they are a weed or a brilliance, but each seed can create a field of dandelions. We are invited to be that prolific and to return fertility to the soil around us. Cells may not know civilization is possible. They don't amass as many units as they can sign up to be the same. No, they grow until they split, complexify. Then they interact and intersect and discover their purpose. I am a lung cell, I am a tongue cell, and they serve it, and they die. And what emerges from these cycles are complex organisms, systems, movements, societies. Nothing is wasted or a failure. Emergence is a system that makes use of everything in the iterative process. It is all data. Octavia Butler says, quote, "Civilization is to groups what intelligence is to individuals. It is a means of combining the intelligence of many to achieve ongoing group adaptation," end quote. She also says, quote, "Everything you touch, you change. Everything you change changes you," end quote. We are constantly impacting and changing our civilization, each other, ourselves, intimates, strangers. And in that reality, we are working to recreate a world that is by its very nature in a constant state of change. But Janine Benyus, the mother of biomimicry, says nature would always create conditions conducive to life. She tells of a radical fringe of scientists who are realizing that natural selection isn't individual, but mutual, that species only survive if they learn to be in community. How can we, future ancestors, align ourselves with the most resilient practices of emergence as a species? Many of us have been socialized that constant growth and critical mass are the ways to create change. But emergence shows us that adaptation and evolution depend more upon critical connections, dare I say love, the quality of connection between the nodes in the patterns. and we know how to connect, and we long for it. Notice what it takes to respond well, how it feels to be in a body, in a whole, separate, aligned, cohesive, critically connected. Now let's get more complex.
I'm Kindred Spirits with Adrienne Marie Brown, who wrote our reading we had earlier today about her observation of fractals, her charge for adaptation back in 2013. After poetically noting what nature does so well in our wonder-filled world, with dandelions and trees and caterpillars, and in other writings she talks about fungi and other examples, she brings the fractals to our own bodies. She said, quote, "Cells may not know civilization is possible. They don't amass as many units as they can sign up to be the same. No, they grow until they split, complexify. Then they interact and intersect and discover their purpose. I'm a lung cell. Oh, I'm a tongue cell." And they serve it and they die. And what emerges from these cycles are complex organisms, systems, movements, societies. Nothing is wasted or a failure. Emergence is a system that makes use of everything in the iterative process. It's all data, end quote. Her clarity in the cyclical, needful rules of adaptation that life organizes within, the endlessness of change, give me hope and language for a life of meaning and purpose amid so much chaos. I don't know about y'all, but I have a great hunger, even an ache, to live my theology in a way that my life is charged by ancient and beautiful imperatives. To shape these fractals, we must acknowledge what shapes us. Whether your guiding impulse is for security or freedom, life experience has proven to me what history also reflects. Life is constantly under the influence. We are influenced by information we receive internally from our own bodies, our senses, our mind, and our body, senses, and mind are conditioned. They're trained and imprinted by our society, family, friends, language, climate, diet, entertainment, and all of these are influenced by governments and media and education, and they are all influenced by more humans, complexified with histories and lineages which create patterns that shape and mold our seemingly spontaneous and free outlook and direction. Simply put, we are all already tethered, harnessed to external obligations which push and pull on our psyche and emotions. The Bhagavad Gita is a single conversation which condenses Vedic wisdom into 18 chapters and is the pillar text of yoga, the ancient practice of binding oneself to the ultimate. The Bhagavad Gita states in chapter 14, text 5, quote, "Material nature consists of the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the living entity comes in contact with nature, one becomes conditioned by these modes." End quote. Modes of nature either train us into disconnecting from our power, like the mode of ignorance, or the influence of the mode of passion is to misdirect our energy to shallow thrills. Or we are influenced to be supportive of creating and curating an environment of growth and healing and service, like the mode of goodness. We can observe the influence of these various modes and the degrees of awareness in our lives, in the news, in our businesses, in our work, and how differently we respond. In the mode of ignorance, it's about passivity, perpetuating trauma, neglecting citizens, ignoring students. In the mode of passion, it's about aggression, pacifying trauma with unhealthy coping mechanisms, triggering our citizens, brainwashing our students. In goodness, it's about being assertive, processing trauma, protecting our citizens, equipping our students. The various modes affect all of us, and no body, no sense, no mind is spared the influence. Jonathan Haidt, a moral psychologist, wrote in his book titled The Righteous Mind this, quote, "The first rule of moral psychology, intuitions come first, strategic reasoning second. We're emotional actors," he says. "We are highly intuitive beings who act first and justify later. Our beliefs, our convictions, and our values are far less rational than we imagine." End quote. We may think we're all logic, but we are a cocktail of perspective, interpretation, conditioning, and whim. The Bhagavad Gita also agrees there is an order of operations ontologically. In chapter 3, text 42, it's explained that above our body, here's our body, is our senses. And above our senses is our mind. And above even our mind is our intelligence. And above our intelligence is our soul, the ultimate. Often we are taught to unquestioningly follow or automatically shut down our body, our senses, and our mind. We're trained to follow or ignore our various parts because let's follow them because they're perfect, or let's ignore them because they're evil. We should follow them because they're absolute, or we should ignore them because they're inherently worthless. But first, I want to allow any misbeliefs. Our bodies are not the enemy, and no matter how hard society claims, our senses, they are not whack. So many of the cultures that are fed propaganda of their own inferiority are the same culture whose senses are stolen from. Their sense of style, or music, or food, or language, or even rituals. And our minds are vital tools to questioning and testing the norms that we are presented. On my journey to reclaiming my relationship to my body, to my senses, to my mind, I have learned that first, they are wonderful. And second, they are corruptible. They give mixed signals, not because they're bad, but because they're impressionable. The impressionable aspect of them is helpful. It's just as I use neuroplasticity to train my mind, or somatic therapy to integrate my senses. I find the healing process does not result in my information receptors, my body, my senses, my mind becoming now infallible. My body is trained to crave toxic processed sugars that literally give me migraines. And my senses send alert signals throughout my body at the threat of what? Vulnerability. My mind, when chemically imbalanced and swimming in a traumatized world, has on multiple occasions calculated my own self-harm. These data receptors, our bodies, our senses, our mind, they are vital and wonderful. And because of their susceptibility to the modes of nature, to empire, to the matrix, they're not qualified to be the center of our moral compass. They're not absolute, nor are they evil. Going up the chain of the yoga ontology, above our mind is our intelligence. Our intelligence is our interpretation stage. It's the place between a stimulus and an action. who gets to shape our responses based on our values and our goals, as well as in conversation with the data received from our body and our senses and our mind. Intelligence is the stage that gets to shape the change. And since we're already shaped by so many externally and internally, so many elements internally and externally, we need discipline to fortify and equip our intelligence. Regulation is healthy and needful to the extent it allows one to consciously pick what we wish to be shaped by. And freedom is only real to the extent we can be shaped and shape lucidly. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is a Bhakti Yoga monk, and he writes this about the best role for intelligence to take in relationship with our minds, who are the sneakiest of the three. He says this, quote, "The mind may be a drinker or an alcoholic, but the intelligence doesn't have to be a bartender." He continues, "Suppose a compulsive drinker enters a bar and orders a drink. The bartender may be obliged to obey, but if the drinker orders a well-wishing friend similarly, that friend, the intelligence, has the right and even the responsibility to refuse. Our inner world is often like a bar," he says, "as it contains many intoxicating impressions coming from our past indulgences, and our intelligence, with its capacity for discernment, is meant to act like the mind's counselor." The Bhagavad Gita states in chapter 3, text 42, it indicates that the intelligence is ontologically higher than the mind, and functionally, however, the mind often tries to usurp the intelligence. And when the intelligence falls, we too fall. To prevent such a fall, we need to strengthen our intelligence by, his suggestion is, spiritual practices such as scriptural study and meditation. Being thus alerted, the intelligence learns to resist the mind's spells, and gradually, devotional purification sobers the mind. End quote. The intelligence is the director of operations, the strategist that, when given more space and thus power, gets to plot out integrative and sustainable action. So I am not promoting abusing or ignoring our body, our senses, or our mind. I am promoting integration, which only the intelligence can guide us towards. And the intelligence can guide us towards it only if it is given the space to reflect and shape the constant changes and chaos we are in. We are tethered to truth, to our values, and really to the ultimate when our intelligence is in service to the higher ontological authority in each of us, our soul, which is connected to a super soul. The soul is what equalizes us. It's what we defend already, right now, what we're already defending and are trying so hard to remove the barriers of, to unleash its flourishing. It's the foundation of all our UU principles of worth and dignity. We defend and champion these already. The importance of our souls in our past and our present social action. It's in our philosophy. Let me explain. Because our bodies are not all the same. Some are black, some are brown. Others are tall, some are short. Some have disabilities, all have various genders and orientations. There are so many ways our bodies come and can grow. And our senses and our mind do not gather the same information or share the same data points. Some of us have musical senses, others of us do not. Some of us think about niche concepts for years, and others of us couldn't be bothered. Our minds, our senses, our bodies are not the same, thank goodness, and yet we are and must be clear that they are equal. They are equally worthy of respect, of rest, of nourishment, and the right to life, to thrive and flourish, to their natural fulfillment. This is the call of the soul, to remember who we are. We are love. To remember why we are to serve. And this is great news. when the world would have us twisted and turned, locked into the notion of our body, our senses, our mind are bad and evil, or they're all that we have. By spiritual practices, we can remember not only is our body holy, our senses sublime, and our mind a wonder, we are beyond all of them, and our truest identity is our soul. And our intelligence guides sustainable, integrative change for the health and wholeness of all. We give intelligence space to tap into the soul by having regular spiritual practice. Ironically, intentional discipline is how we access true freedom, not the freedom of illusion, thinking we're free agents when really it's trauma and institutions and society and various self-gratifying illusions which shape us. Like we discussed before, the Bhagavad Gita explains that thousands of years ago, not knowing about the three modes of nature doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means that we're ignorant to our power and our responsibility. It means that we got for months and years and centuries and lifetimes. Look around. I have a belief and a saying that our job in life is to not get got. And if we get got, our job is to get free, to get ungot. That means first we liberate ourselves from the notion that our bodies are bad or somehow a burden on society. And we read, for this you can read Sonia Renee Taylor's book, quote, "Your body is not an apology." And it means that we free ourselves from the toxic habit of numbing our senses, and we learn to rest and defend and tend to ourselves well. I encourage you for this to go follow, subscribe the Nat Bishop's project titled Nap Ministries on Facebook, on Instagram, and probably elsewhere on the internet. And it means that we engage, we get ungot by engaging our mind. And we don't shut down our questions or submit to incomplete or dismissive frameworks. Instead, read work by people in marginalized bodies. Lend your ear, your mind, your heart to their wisdom and their sharp takes on this rat race. People like Audre Lorde, James Baldwin, Adrienne Marie Brown, Toni Morrison, and Resmaa Menakem, so many more. And not getting got, getting free, also means we don't herald a new cult or religion to our temporary bodies, to our shifting senses, to our fallible minds. Instead, go back to the source, that which unifies us all. Just as our souls are connected to an ultimate, and return. Remember, refill your precious vessel, recalibrate your compass, and redirect your energy to the river of life. What is it telling you? For this, you can meditate, chant, journal, tarot, pull tarot, read the Bhagavad Gita, make regular, however you do, the practice of giving space to your intelligence and fuel for your soul. This, I believe, is the art of shaping change. No, it's the imperative. It's an action and a discipline birthed from our most sacred and primal instinct to love, our impulse to serve, to heal so we may thrive, so that the rat race calls you and entices you back into the matrix. We can remember what Adrienne said in 2013 in her speech, which was our reading earlier today, quote, "Many of us have been socialized that constant growth and critical mass are the ways to create change, but emergence shows that adaptation and evolution depend more upon critical connections. Dare I say, love. The quality of connection between the nodes in the pattern," end quote. Today, I hope you feel convinced and encouraged to continue or pick up a rich daily spiritual practice, that you give space for the recalibration of your intelligence to love's song, your soul's song, and shape the world towards love.
Thank you, Reverend Hailu. Let's sing about that river of life that runs through us, that reminds us to trust our mind and our heart and our soul. The lyrics are in the chat. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul and in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind and in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. Tag it. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul. Thanks all.
Before our closing words, we'd like to invite you to coffee hour after service. We'll be moving to a different Zoom room where we'll be able to meet as a large group for a moment to say hello, and then we'll move into smaller breakout rooms for a bit more conversation. The link for the room is in the chat. You'll be able to click on it at the end of service, and we'll also have it on the final slide. We also have a coffee hour just for our kids and their families, and that information is in the chat as well. If you're a visitor, please come and join us. It'll be great to meet you and talk with one another.
May you identify the obstacles which block the clarity of who you are flowing from your soul. May we all together organize to remove the obstacles which block the flourishing of life for all. May you remember you are beloved and go out from here and be love.